Just for the sake of a summary of the Forgotten Ways, in terms of my conclusion, just to give a clue to my own methodology, what I try to do is to identify the key elements in both movements and compare them with other movements, and to find the irreducible minimum. So it's important for any reader or any participant in the Podule series to understand that what is trying to distill down the distinctive elements that come together that create movement. And so there are distillations, and it's important to understand that. But I would argue again that these are common to all movements that go kaboom. Kaboom is that explosive kind of thing, and for a summary would go something like this: that at the core of every movement is a distilled message around the Lordship of Jesus. It's very profound because even though it's 3 words, Jesus is Lord, it summarizes a worldview, but it's also a message that can sing. And it's the cohesive spiritual theological center of movements, and sociologists do call them Jesus movements as a result. The next element, and is very related to Jesus Lord, is the discipleship piece, which is the living out of the Lordship of Jesus. And my definition of a disciple is simply a person becoming more and more like Jesus. So it's a little Jesus, but movements that change will obsessed with that. I mean, they all do discipleship and take it very seriously. Another element would be what I call missional incarnational impulse. This has to do with the pattern of engagement with the world and how the movement spreads. Missional is the sending or the outgoing impulse, and incarnational is the deepening one. So they go out and they deepen, that kind of approach, and we'll look at that because there's a lot of stuff related to that. Another one is what I call apostolic environment, and that has to do really with the ministry of the church. The key catalytic role being apostolic, but not the only, by any means the only ministry needed to create movement and sustain it, but without which it doesn't happen. But behind that is the Ephesians 4 text, which I think is a piece of genetic information that we miss to our great detriment. So we'll look at the fivefold dynamics there, and also the nature of apostolic ministry, and it's critical. That's the ministry of the church. Another one that would be called organic systems. This has to do more with the organizational structure or the dynamics of how movements organize themselves. Again, this is paradigmatically different to the institutional forms that we have become so accustomed to, and therefore, it provides us a kind of, again, with the mirror of organizational theory and all that stuff. And the final one is what I call communitas, not community. And this has to do with the nature of community, the kind of comradeship that develops in the context of challenge, in this case persecution, but it doesn't have to be that way. But it's a different way of relating than the more the softer edged kind of community that we tend to kind of experience in a more comfort zone. It's a non-comfort zone thing. So mission, of course, can create community. Again, the definition I'll give later. But those 6 elements are all present, I would argue. In every movement that has changed the world and gone exponential. Remember, that's what I'm looking at. I would argue that all 6 elements are always present. If you take one of them out, you cannot get to exponential impact. You'll get to quality. In other words, a movement that takes fivefold ministry seriously is going to be significantly, I believe, enhanced. But in itself is not enough. A movement that does missional incarnational engagement is going to be better than the tractional evangelistic forms. I think more consistent with the scriptural pattern, but in itself it's not going to be enough. If you did discipleship and that's all you did, and you didn't do the rest, you're not going to get there either. So all 6 elements have to come and play and interrelate, become a constellation of factors, as it were, in order for a movement to take place. When all 6 come together, I would argue then you have your kaboom. It's going to take off. If you can bring all 6 elements to play together, I think movement is inevitable, because at that stage you are a movement. Yeah, so that's what the Podule series will explore, and certainly that's what the book kind of lays out in more detail for.